Hello everyone, welcome to Series 2 of the GBA Lightbulb Sessions. The Great British Entrepreneur Awards, in association with BT Skills for Tomorrow, have designed a free live stream series of Lightbulb Sessions to support small businesses and entrepreneurs with insightful and advice-driven sessions, featuring some of the UK's brilliant entrepreneurial minds to illuminate your path to entrepreneurial success. You can find out more about BT Skills for Tomorrow by heading to their website at www.bt.com/skills for tomorrow, or by clicking on the link in the comment section. In today's session, Great British Entrepreneur Awards Head of Content Jonathan Davies will be speaking with founder of Dr.PAWPAW, Johnny Paterson. Johnny will discuss the importance of creating one brand and one feel across the globe. He'll offer tips and advice on how you can grow your sales and brand awareness around the world in each territory, particularly in the context of a post-Brexit world. There is an opportunity to ask questions during this session. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can pop this in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer these throughout the session. Just to let you know, there will be a poll available towards the end of the session, and all answers will be anonymous. And with that, I'll pass over to our host today, Jonathan Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Chloe, and welcome, Johnny. Thank you for taking the time with us today.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. I guess it'd be a great place to start with if you could tell us a bit more about you, about the brand, and you know, your own export journey.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, just to confirm, I'm Johnny Paterson, and I'm one of the co-founders of Dr.PAWPAW. I started the business with my wife, Pauline Paterson, 7 years ago. And just to highlight, I am the current Great British Entrepreneur of the Year. Thank you guys for the award. It was a major accolade for me and the team. Delighted with that. Just a bit about myself. So really positive person. You always try to have a positive outlook on everything that we're doing as a business. My background was PR and marketing. I ran a hair and beauty PR agency for 22 years. And then more recently, we saw an opportunity to create our own brand, because basically I was giving all this advice to clients and seeing what they were doing, and thought, well, why don't we look to do our own thing? And an opportunity arose with Dr.PAWPAW, and then we created it. The brand itself is it's a multi-purpose tasking brand of products which are for skin, balms, hair care. As I said, it's multitasking, but I think one of the key things that were important to me and Pauline at the start of the journey was community would be at its heart, that we would create products that obviously our clients would love, you'd imagine, but we would use things like social media to talk to them throughout about what we were doing, what they liked, what they didn't like. And I think just over a period of time, what we then also noticed, and something that was close to our hearts, is that as the business grew, we wanted to give back. And it's funny because more recently we see more and more brands are doing more positive things, whether it be with regards to plastic or donations, and that's always been at the heart of what we do. So to cut that down in a bite size, I mean, we're a brand that likes to give back. So we're supporting people like Crisis, the Teenage Cancer Trust. That's who we're working with for this year. And yeah, that's the brand. The export journey. Again, I'm a big believer in timing and how things are supposed to come along. And actually, I was on a train to Manchester, and I picked out my PAWPAW tube, and this lady said to me, she said, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Oh," because it was our bright yellow tube. You know, we'll talk about the brightness of the brand. And I said, "Oh, it's a multitasking balm." She said, "Oh, you know, I really like that." She said, "What are you doing with it, you know, with regards to export?" I said, "Well, what does that mean?" So she explained where she was from, and she was actually from the DIT. So she was from the UK government and helping brands to do export. So just by chance, I met this lady, and she said, "Look, you know, once I get back to the office, I want to set up a meeting for you to come in and see us." And with that, I got some funding to go out to a show called Cosmoprof, which was happening every year in Italy in March. And we flew out there, we took a stand, me and a guy that I was working with me at the time, and we just, you know, almost like we just emptied our suitcase and just started talking to customers from around the world. And within a couple of years, we were in about 7 to 8 export markets. Now we currently trade in 30, some very successful, some not successful. And then just another little add-on, you know, we went back to the DIT a couple of years later, and there was an amazing lady there called Michelle Field who said, you know, you're doing pretty well with this export business. And we said, well, why? And she said, well, because, you know, you're actually doing export. And I mean, we just thought that that was second nature to us, really. And she said, but most people in the UK don't think to export their goods. They just think selling their own market and that's it. And she said, really, you're an export champion. So now I'm a part of the UK export champions. And so really that sort of brings us up to date to the present day. I mean, we're, as I said, trading in 30 countries. We've got a warehouse here in the UK, a warehouse in New Jersey. We've got a bonded warehouse just outside of China. And yeah, working in about 30 countries. Sorry, that's quite a lot to say, but it was a big question. So hope that's okay, John.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that was great kind of insight into the brand and the start of the export journey, as you said. So kind of going back to the start, you know, you've had this chance, a very lucky chance meeting with the Department of International Trade. When you actually began, what were kind of the very first steps that you started taking and that other brands need to take to start exporting?
Can I be truthfully honest? I didn't have any idea. I didn't know what I was doing. As I said, we went to Bologna with a suitcase of products. And I mean, we had some artwork put up on our walls and we went with a suitcase full of one SKU because that's all we had when we first launched. And you know, we were just wheeling and dealing, which, you know, now doesn't sound very good or very professional. But what I've done is, I suppose I've thought of what I would do now if I was doing it again. And I don't know if that's a better way of looking at it. I mean, one of the things that we're always really keen on is margin, especially with what's going on with Brexit and costs, etc. And obviously shipping goods, taxes and duties. We always make sure that we're making margin and good margin for the business. We tend to have this like sort of 2.5 times rule when we're dealing with retailers, and then, you know, the sort of 1.5 times with distributors. So margin's really key. I think that's something to know, and especially, as I said, with retailers. I think with distributors, you know, again, we're trying to protect again margin, but you know, it's being aware that you have to supply them with free stocks and knowledge, because you're basically asking them to become you in their country. They don't have, most of our distributors have great passion, but they're not us. So you know, they'll admit that, we'll admit that, but you've got to try and give them that knowledge to go out there with, and the margin again. I think another point for us is, and it's something that we've created, and I implore every brand to do this, is a blueprint to success. So we just chronologically wrote how we created the business that we created in the UK. And obviously it's our most successful market up until last year. We basically went through, you know, this is how we went out with our story. This is how we went to makeup artists. This is how we did our PR, our marketing, our social media. This is our one feel as a brand. Sorry, I'm getting messages through. Let me just turn that off. Yeah, just putting all these things down into a blueprint, so that it really helped them to succeed as quickly as possible. Another thing that I think is really important, and again, we didn't have the cash or the knowledge at the time, but trademarking your brand to the best of your ability with the cash that you have available, because it is quite expensive. When we initially started, we went to a trademark lawyer. But luckily, my amazing wife, Pauline, when she obviously came and started working for the business full time, because when we started the business, she was pregnant with our son. I said to her, I think we should start this business together. And she thought we were crazy. But as soon as she could, she was there, and she set up all the trademarks and organized that for us. So that was great having that capability. But trademark your brand, because the retailers and distributors are going to be looking for that. And I think just one other point, again, that we probably do now, which we didn't do back then, is looking at things like the competition. I was just so sure and focused with Pauline that our brand was going to make it. We just knew that we had something successful. I mean, we're quite lucky that we're in a a sector that's quite old lip balms. It's the same brands for the same amount of years. So we knew that we had something fresh and innovative. But now when we go into markets, we check the competition, we check the pricing, so that when we're talking to the retailer or distributor, when they're trying to tell us the issues they're having, we already know them. You know, we've looked at the zloty versus the pound, we've looked at the rand versus the pound, you know, and I think that's really, really good knowledge. So they're all the points. Again, it's a lot of points, but lots to cover.
Oh yeah, thank you for that. And I think you probably touched on a little bit of what I'm about to ask there, but I'll crack on anyway, just in case there's anything else. I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of entrepreneurs would kind of they would love to pick a destination and say, I want to smash the US.
Yes.
But that might not always be achievable. How do you assess which markets kind of have certain levels of success or chances of success, which ones aren't likely to do well? What's the kind of process there?
I mean, again, just going back to the start, I really didn't work like that. I just went out there with my suitcase trying to promote it. But in saying that, quite quickly, we could see what we should be aiming at. And, you know, when I talk to fellow entrepreneurs, MDs, business owners, we all tend to talk about the same things. You know, look for markets that are buoyant. When you're fairly new, English speaking markets are a lot easier to manage, you know. And a little rule of thumb, which I think I really like simple things in business, but large populations, you should expect this from the United States, and then it maybe expect this from, Slovenia. You can't compare the two markets. So, at the start, we went for everything, but now we tend to focus on where's the population, where's the opportunity for us, is this market, slow for beauty? Does it need some renaissance? And can we be the brand to provide that? So, that's what I would do now. So.
Yeah, excellent. And is there any kind of sort of, you used the phrase there, rule of thumb, when it comes to the type of business or the type of products that do well in export and overseas?
No, I mean, it's just such a wide question, and I don't think I'd want to say yes or no to something, because if somebody's got a great idea out there, don't listen to me, go out and do what you feel is best, go for it. That's what we did. But there are some pointers that, I would give you. I mean, for us, I've mentioned it already, my background is marketing. So we knew if magazine editors that are looking to put stuff in magazines, they're bored of anything that's this white color. It just doesn't look that interesting on page. Put this on a page and it stands right out. And it does the same on a retail shelf. It does the same on an e-tail site. So, that was something that we thought about. I mean, this is quite sort of beauty focused, but I will try and expand on it. Being vegan friendly and cruelty free, they're musts for us as a UK business. We think, having some ethics and standing up for those are really important. So again, wherever we tend to go now in the world, one of the first questions we get asked is, are you vegan? More and more people want that sort of ethic. But I think as a wider point, the one thing that when we launched this, we knew that it wasn't an innovation, because it's a balm. It's not an innovation. Let's be straight. So, but what we knew is that people wanted something new, or it was a product that wasn't readily available, and so we went down that route. But I think if you have an innovation or something that people can't readily get, I think they're two great things that will work overseas.
Yeah, and just in terms of the Dr. PAWPAW products, are there examples where one product line is really successful here in the UK, but it's not so successful in another market, but another range of your products is much better there?
Yeah, so funny you should say that. So in obviously the UK, our balms the balms are generally a success everywhere. But any market, the balms tend to be, they were where we started. It's our historical story, if you like. But with our shampoos and conditioners in the Far East, they sell so much better than they do in Europe because they contain mango. So culturally, mango in the Far East is a loved ingredient, a loved scent. So we included this in our hand creams, and that performs so much better than it does here. So yes, there is things to consider in terms of cultural differences. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that we wanted to talk about. We hear a lot of really, really big, multinational companies talk a lot about the importance of understanding different cultures, and you mentioned just there the fact that mango is really big in the Far East at the moment, kind of drove the decision to put that into some products. But how do you maintain your brand and the feeling of the brand whilst being mindful of cultural differences around the world?
Yeah, so I think it's like any good deal, you have to feel of it. Two parties need to come together, and you need to obviously agree on something. So the first thing for us is that blueprint to success, showing the distributor or the retailer how we did it is very important. You might hear, graphic designers and designers talk about this, but a style guide, how we want the brand to be presented, how we want it to look. Our PR and marketing talk about how we want it to sound, how we want it to speak, if you like. So when we're not there, it's talking. And then the other thing that we do is obviously we have training before we launch in any territory with the distributor, with the retailer, so that they understand, what we're about. However, I think it is so important that you listen to your counterparts, the retailer, who might say, I understand that you charge this price in the UK, but if you try and sell that here, we're not going to sell anything. So you can either go against that and then possibly fail, or you can listen. And it could be the little things. I mean, there's, when we were talking to we're launching on Tmall at the end of March, they highlighted things that we wouldn't have considered in our product, and that possibly we may not even allow over here in the UK. But we've gone with that based on their advice. So I think, yes, do listen to them. Another little side note, and again, it's a simple thing, but I think it's really important, is be aware of what's going on with the world. So in terms of my sales team, the business development team, and myself and marketing, we're always keeping an eye on what's happening in world news, talking to a retailer and trying to push through a deal or a sale, or sending out some email marketing when they've got riots going on, or famine. It's pick your time and be conscious of what's happening in their markets. I think that's really important. The main thing is, John, just being good and friendly with people. People buy from people. So if you're friendly and upbeat, that's going to go a long way. And that's a good thing that us British people do. We've got a good sense of humor, and they do seem to get it. So.
You mentioned earlier about the importance of social media and community. How important is it for you and for other brands to embrace social media platforms that aren't available here? They're solely international platforms.
I thought about this. I think obviously social media for us, when we first launched, it was so important because we didn't have the cash to actually go and spend £200,000 on print advertising in our market, never mind any other market. So the great thing about social media is it is free, and Facebook and Instagram and Google, if we look, are readily available all over the world. But again, talking about cultural differences, if you look at a country like China, they don't have those platforms. I mean, actually they do have Instagram, but it's just not as popular like the way it is here. So they have platforms like Weibo, and they're really, really, on these types of platforms. So I suppose one thing I would say is, having strong presence globally on your, should we say, Western pages are really, really important, but knowing the cultural differences on social media and then employing the knowledge and the awareness from those markets, I think is really important. So, just as an example, in the Far East, we've got an agency that's doing our social media, and then in the US, whilst it's English speaking, the American market is so different to the UK market. We've just had a huge piece of success in America because of the Bridgerton effect. One of the makeup artists used our products on the set, and then she went on to, I think it was Glamour in the US, and said, I used Dr.PAWPAW. It's only costs $8 from Ulta, and I used it on the Duke's lips. It went viral. We had a sellout in one day. So having knowledge in every area, I think, is important.
Yeah, and you know, something like that, it's something that can't be bought really, and can't be planned.
No. I want to do it again, but I'm trying to think of the next thing.
I'm sure it'll come. You've mentioned a lot about, you know, finding the right distributors, the right retailers. You've just mentioned that you've got a social media, an agency in the Far East.
Yeah.
How important is it to find those local experts to help you understand the culture, the supply chains, the distribution, and perhaps more importantly, how on earth do you find about muddling my words. How do you go about finding the right one when, you know, you're half the world away?
Connections, as I said, I mean, I'm quite a positive person, and so is my wife, and, you know, obviously can't go on enough about that. You know, we have friends generally all over the world. I'm not saying we're, you know, the most popular people, but we have got friends around the world. So when we were entering the US market with Ulta and CVS, that's 10,000 doors across America, we knew that we needed an agency to give us the knowledge of influencers and what's being talked about on news, because the news here in the UK is not the news in the US, apart from obviously what's happening with Oprah Winfrey this Sunday. That's going to be a big piece. So we had friends that were in New York, and we asked them, did they know of anybody in the agency? And that's how we got to our first agency, just through that connection of friendship. In the Far East, that was slightly different. We were approached by Tmall. So Tmall is the site in the Far East. It's the monster. And the Tmall team gave us advice on the agencies to use. So they provided 2 or 3, and we interviewed them, and we based it on, like, who do we get on with? Who do we like? You know, is this going to be fun? Because it has to be. You know, obviously preparing, if you get on well at the start, that's good, but when you have those tough times, you know, is that going to be good as well? So yeah, we went through that. So that's how those two came about. I think without having that knowledge, i.e. friends abroad or working with, say, Tmall, I think, you know, the great thing about nowadays is that you've got Google, and you literally can Google somebody to help you everywhere. I mean, we're obviously working on all our Brexit work at the moment, and I was trying to work with all these UK agencies who said that they could help us and help us quickly, and it was just taking too long. So I just got onto Google, said Polish ORI number, taxation in Poland, and up comes an agency. I contacted them, and we're off. So, you know, don't underestimate the power of Google still.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned it there, the big B word, whether you kind of have been.
We have to talk about it.
Yeah, whether you've kind of have been for it, have been against it. We've seen so many stories on the news since the start of the year that businesses are facing trouble getting their products to the EU, whether it's distribution delays or costs or paperwork. What has the impact been on Dr. PAWPAW? And I guess once you've answered that, would you actually recommend to a business that they actually start exporting to the EU right now?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the latter first, because I think that's really quite important for me. Is I really believe you should continue. I mean, if you are selling to EU, continue, and if you're not, carry on doing it. I feel like this has just been one of these perfect storms. We've had the coronavirus pandemic. That's been obviously horrendous for a lot of businesses, challenging. There's a lot of issues with cardboard at the moment in the UK, with Amazon chewing it all up. We've got plastic issues with China and getting shipments over from China. And then, as you mentioned, trying to get stock out of the UK is challenging, because we've either got businesses who don't know what they're doing, or we have, you know, basically just container loads of stock sitting there, and it's just taking longer than possible. So first of all, you must continue to trade. And the reason being is because this won't last forever. It's just this perfect storm that's happening right now. And, you know, I can tell you that all my EU counterparts that I'm talking to, they just want this to go away as well. You know, at the end of the day, they're not politicians. They're just consumers like you and me. Again, going back to that people thing, you know, they just want to buy our products and move the goods into their country and sell it to consumers. So this will die down. But yes, it is. It has been an issue. But I have got some tips. I didn't know if I should provide those to things that yeah, just some things that we've noticed that have really helped. Because as I pointed out, I mean, the DIT group that I'm on, the Export Champions, will know I went to them and said, can anybody provide any advice? And then I went to, you know, professionals who were supposed to give advice. And, you know, from what we've seen is that, you know, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that all your products are compliant. And that means by having a responsible person on the back of your packaging. This is obviously if you're in beauty, there's some products that don't need this. You know, the next thing is find yourself a great freight forwarder. So somebody who knows all about all the delivery terms, DDP, DAP, but also won't allow you to send your goods without the correct paperwork. So that's something that we've come up against. We've had some of our foreign customers who have ordered things. They've said that they've had all the paperwork in place. We've shipped it. It's landed in Spain and they've said, oh no, we can't clear it. So it has to come all the way back to the UK. So our freight forwarder has made sure that nothing goes without all the correct paperwork. And that's a big time saver and a big, obviously, saver on cash. Wherever possible, try and sell DAP because basically that means it will get to the border and the retailer and the distributor will then take on the import duties, etc., which they will get back. And then if you do have to do DDP, you know, ensure that you have, you know, your ORI number and that you have either taxation set up alongside it so that it actually can go through DDP. We're hearing lots of friends of mine that have obviously got the ORI number, but then once they've got the stock in, because it's not backed up with taxation, import, etc., it doesn't land. So, you know, just make sure basically you've got a great freight forwarder and that you've got all the paperwork in place. And as I said, it will die down. It will.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm conscious we haven't got too much time left, but we've got a few questions left.
Okay.
There's kind of a school of thought over the years that you have to nail your home market before you go international.
Yes.
I mentioned earlier the representative from DIT who said, look, most people don't even try it at all. But I've got two questions in this area. Is there any kind of rough guidance on what success in your home market looks like first before you start looking outward? And with so many digital tools at our disposal, so many different ways of getting our brand and our messaging and our products around the world, is that journey from startup to export getting shorter?
Yes, but let me answer the first question first. I mean, again, in all honesty, as I keep saying, when we went out, we didn't have, you know, sales in the UK market. I think we're probably in 2 or 3 major retailers, the Harvey Nichols, the Selfridges, which sounded great for us to go and, you know, open up our suitcase with, as I keep mentioning. But now looking back, you know, if I'd have done it differently again, I mean, I probably wouldn't have done it differently because this is why we're here today. But it definitely does help having a strong UK market for multiple reasons. One, it allows you to go into any new market, like with a retailer or with a distributor and say, hey, we've done it. You know, we've worn the T-shirt. We know how it works. We're in 10,000 doors here, you know, in the UK, and you know, it's all a bit of image, if you like. The social media aspect is again really important. So I think you talked about how do we say what is important in terms of success? Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously having doors or multiple doors or having a successful sales in the UK, I think is important. Having a good social media following for us as a business is really important because obviously we're trying to sell to retailers to either drive them onto our websites or into store. Obviously, there is other businesses where that's probably not so important, but to the type of customers we're talking to, it's one of the first questions that we sit down in front of a buyer and they'll say, how many followers do you have? You know, it used to be, you know, what's the margin? It's now like, how many followers do you have? And then we go to talk about margin. So I do think it is important to have a successful market, but I wouldn't say that it's the absolute epitome of having success abroad because, as I think you've mentioned it earlier, I mean, you can enter a new market with something that's not culturally right here in the UK, but could be huge somewhere else. So, you know, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but it's a nice plus. There was a follow-on question, wasn't there?
Yeah, just about the you know, the amount of tools that we've got to get our brand, get our messaging, get our products around the world. Is the journey from startup to home success to export getting shorter?
Yes, but experience and how you make it successful, not. So, I mean, we were quite lucky a couple of years ago. We did a thing called the ECRM. It's very important to us. It's where we get to sit in front of buyers, 20-minute meetings in hotels. And we managed to pick up, as I mentioned, the 10,000 doors in America. So, you know, it's instant success in terms of you're in all these doors. But what we've got to do is drive those customers into the stores. Now, in the past, we would have heavily relied on the build and awareness of PR. Now, with social media, we can do all the advertising directly here from our office in Bromley, and target, you know, anybody in the US who's interested in, you know, our type of product and who shops at, you know, the stores that we're in. So that part is much quicker, but the experience of the mistakes that you make, you have to do that with time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that word there, mistakes. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made, and how have you grown from those?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because I think the one thing that we, you know, hearing me talk today, it all sounds quite rosy, but actually the thing that has got us where we are is the amount of mistakes that we've made that have been quite painful to us in the business over the years. So things like going too early with an international retailer. You know, there was one particular retailer that we won down on the Mediterranean, 330 doors. They put a big order in front of me, and of course, as a salesman, you want to take it, but you know, we put the stock in. The partner that we felt that we had there to help market it didn't have the skill set, so it failed. And so one of the things that I'm quite keen on now is that we either, you know, strongly vet the partner that we're going to work with. What's their marketing skills? What can they actually do? Show me success stories, or try and run the market directly. So, you know, the United States, you know, we actually run that direct. You know, there's certain markets that we do, but then there's some where, again, we need the local knowledge. I think, again, other mistakes that we've made is obviously not getting pricing right or dropping it quite quickly to suit the market. Perhaps we shouldn't have done that and waited, find the right retail partner. And another thing, which is in my personality, is going too fast. So, you know, I went to Bologna that year and I wanted to sell to anybody and everybody who would take it. And so to this day, there's still things I have to fix from my previous mistakes. You know, a market that I've gone into and I've had to explain to the new retailer, yep, that was me 7 years ago, stupid Johnny who didn't know what he was doing, and which they like the honesty. I think that's really important. But the interesting thing about your mistakes is that you don't have any regrets, because you know, the opportunity does come around again. You know, one thing that I'm quite excited about is that there's a number of retailers that dropped us and said that they would never stock us again. And then, you know, a few years later, we're now in every single door that they have. And I think that's amazing. So timing is everything.
Yeah, brilliant. And then one final question from me before we go on to the audience questions.
Yeah.
So to finish, what do you think is the most important factor in exporting successfully?
I had to ask Pauline about this, because I don't think it's that easy. But we did come up with one big point, and we think it's communication. The thing where we've thrived so much is because we're always sharing our knowledge, what we're learning, and we make everybody that's with us, i.e. the retailers, the distributors, the agents, the manufacturers, the contract manufacturers, the warehouses, feel like they're on this with us. So, you know, tell them how you're doing, talk to them about your success, educate them, talk to them regularly. I mean, because of my marketing background, I'm always talking through email marketing, through videos, WhatsApp, calls. But I think the main thing is communication, and make sure that they feel like they're on the journey with you, because if they do, they will stick with you, and they've got the passion that you have.
Excellent. That's that's absolutely fantastic. So that's all from me. We'll move on to
thank you, John. Thank you.
Questions from the audience. So the first one comes from Harry, and he asks, what are the first steps in setting up a team internationally?
Well, that's quite interesting, because we actually haven't done that yet. We've tried to keep everything here in the UK, mainly, especially in the US, because of tax reasons. One thing that I would do is definitely look for the expertise in the market. So like in the United States, as I mentioned, we have a PR agency there who gives us the media and the awareness there. And then obviously we have a contracted warehouse in New Jersey who gives us all the information on, they're very, very good. They're not only shipping our goods for us, but they're also telling us about, how some of the retailers operate. So, they are included in our team. Then in the Far East, in our pre-bonded warehouse and our agency we're working with there, again, they're giving us all the knowledge there. But in terms of, sorry, I'm probably not answering that to the best of my ability, because we actually don't have, teams internationally. We're managing it all here at the moment.
No, not at all. That's fine. And we've had another one from Lucy, who's asking about local manufacturing for a huge market like the US. I guess the cost implications of that, the ease of setting it up.
So actually making it here or making it over there?
Judging by the wording, I'd say making it in the market in the US.
Yeah, so we've been looking at that for a long time, and we have one of a fantastic contract manufacturer who we use, Amelia Knight. I'll do a shout out for them. They've been fantastic for us, and not gonna lie, we've had a look at making the product in the US just to see what the price comparison is. We've also had a look at making it just outside of China and Korea, just to see the cost implications. So whilst the costs, there may be some small savings, by the time you do the shipping to different territories and stuff, it all balances out. And for us, we're a British brand. We're proud of that. We're that's one of the things that we do with the UK export. We're always shouting that we're British made. So for us, it feels like it has to stick here for the time being, definitely. But it's actually quite easy to do. Again, we've spoken to a number of US manufacturers. So if Lucy wants some details, I know we'd be delighted to share them, because they are great. They are great.
Excellent. Well, yeah, Lucy, if you want to go ahead with that, then drop us a message, and we'll put you in touch with Johnny. I think probably one last one. This one is from an anonymous attendee, who asks, on the topic of Brexit, is it easier from a paperwork and bureaucracy point of view to push for ex-works terms when exporting?
Definitely. Sorry. So ex-works, that's the absolute, it's probably one thing I should mention. Ex-works means they're collecting it from you. That's the absolute easiest way to do it. However, so we have a number of our customers who deal with us ex-works, but what they've struggled is once they usually take care of the shipment out of the UK into Europe. They don't have the knowledge now. The companies that they're using don't have the knowledge. So interestingly enough, our freight forwarder is now helping our international clients who would usually just come and collect the goods. He's now handling their work as well. And again, I'll just, if you don't mind me mentioning, it's Stephen from Quality Freight. He's been fantastic. So he's helping them on their ex-works terms to get it outside, because obviously he has the knowledge of how to get this product out of the UK. But always, wherever possible, ex-works, definitely. Great point.
Excellent. Well, I think that's it from the audience questions. So, Johnny, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really helpful for a lot of people, I'm sure, and really insightful. So thank you for your time. And
thank you.
I will pass back to Chloe.
Great. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much both, and thank you, Johnny, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge. Do you have any final words before we sign off?
No, I think, one of the things I wanted to talk about was obviously the mistakes, because, I've seen fellow entrepreneurs talk about it, and I think the most important thing to remember is that, you know, mistakes do happen, and that, you know, they don't define you. They only help you go along further in the business. So when those mistakes happen, learn from them. Don't repeat them. That's the key thing. And above all, and hopefully you get that from in my demeanor, just remain positive. You know, you can do business anywhere in the world. Problems will occur. That doesn't mean you don't do business. It means you jump the hurdles, how get around them, and find the expertise to help you. So just do it, guys. Trade.
Thanks, Johnny. Our next Lightbulb session will be at the same time next week with Hayes McIntyre, as they'll be discussing sustainable brands, the now and the future. If there is anything you'd like to catch up on from today's session, we'll be sending out a replay of this recording coming later on today. You can find the replay and future sessions at www.lightbulb-sessions.haysummit.com. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, John and Johnny.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening in.
Goodbye, everybody.